Well, all right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody. This is Less Annoying CRM's webinar on how to optimize the CRM for your insurance agency. This webinar is geared towards all experience levels with Less Annoying CRM. So there will be some setup tips and some high level specific functions that we'll delve into as well. This demo, as I said, is also being recorded. So don't worry about scribbling down notes or anything like that. We'll send you the link after this webinar so you can revisit this if you want to refer back to anything. So first, let's introduce ourselves so you know who's chatting with you today. I'm Eunice Koo, and I'm a CRM coach here at Less Annoying CRM. I've spoken with hundreds of insurance agents on how to use the CRM for their specific agency's needs and wanted to share some top tips with everyone else here. Also on the line, we've got Julia Zassa, who's going to be helping me out.
Hi, I'm Julia. I am also a CRM coach like Eunice, and I've talked to many insurance agents here as well. And I run most of our marketing initiatives at Less Annoying CRM. So if you've ever received a newsletter or an email, it's probably from me.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive in here. But before that, we want this webinar to be informative and interactive for everyone here. So if at any point you've got questions, just send in a chat and Julia will compile these questions for the end. We want this to be as much of a conversation as possible, so don't be shy. At the top of your Join Me screen, you should see a circular button, just second from the left, that has a speech bubble within that. And that is our chat screen where you can enter in any question that you have. Julia will keep track of all of these questions to make sure we have time to tackle them all at the end of the webinar. So feel free to send over any questions as they pop into your head. So first off, many of you already use Less Annoying CRM, but for those of you who haven't used a system like this, let's talk about what a CRM is first. A CRM stands for Customer Relationship Manager. And it is here to help you keep track of your relationships with your prospects, your leads, your current clients, and anyone that you work with. In today's webinar, we'll show you some quick tips about Less Annoying CRM that can help you with your insurance agency, as well as ways to use CRM data to scale your business here. We're going to focus this webinar on three main sections about how you can make sure your account is set up to its full potential and completely customized for your insurance agency, how to optimize your data organization to help you pull up the most accurate information whenever you need it, and finally, how you can get the system amped up to help you scale your agency. And just to give us some kind of format here, the specifics of what we'll be covering, we'll be talking pipelines, filtering, how to stack these filters to generate very specific sets of contacts so you know who to follow up with, and the best way to use things like groups in the CRM to help you organize and segment your database a little bit more. So the first essential thing here that we'll be talking about is really the foundation that everything else builds upon. This is making sure your Less Annoying CRM account is customized for your specific insurance agency. We have an insurance template built already with some custom pipelines and fields. And when I'm demoing some of our features during this webinar, I'll be using this template to showcase them. This template is the result of hundreds of conversations with our users in the insurance industry, so we're passing along the best of these ideas along to you. If you don't already have this template on your account, don't worry about that. We'll include that link in the email that we're sending after this webinar so that you can go in and take a look and play around with the template for yourself as well. Nonetheless, this template itself only takes you halfway. You want to make sure your account is customized for you and not just any insurance agency out there. You want to add the carriers that you provide, that you work with, select the specific types of insurance that you offer, and anything else that you track on your own, you can add custom fields for them. So that's a lot of talk here. Let me actually show you what that looks like on the main account. So I'm going to pull up right now a demo version of our CRM, and this here already has our insurance template applied to it. So let's first talk about custom contact fields. Custom contact fields are things that you would store directly on the contact record when you're adding a new person to the CRM. So when I'm adding a new contact, I'm going to hit Add a New Contact on the top right corner of the page, and you will see that we already have a few custom contact fields for this insurance template for your spouse's name, for dependents, for current providers, and all of that on the bottom right corner. But if you want to store any other personal details about your contacts, you can go ahead and create those through your settings page. And let me just show you that while I add a couple of more people in. And you want to create more of those options just through your settings page on the top right corner. Hit on View All Settings Options and click on Custom Fields, the second option under Customization Options. So let's imagine here, maybe I also keep track of something like client IDs. All of my clients have a specific ID I assign to them. But I'm going to go ahead and create a field so I can store that information in the CRM. I'm going to just hit Create a New Custom Field, put in Client ID, hit Create this field. And now whenever I add a new contact into the CRM or a new company into the CRM, when I just hit on this button on the top right corner, I will now see I've got this new field here that allows me to add a client ID for this particular person I'm adding to the CRM. Now, the bulk of the customization here is going to come in the form of your pipeline customization. So let's take a step back and take a look at that. I'm going to go back to my workspace here, and you can see with this insurance template, we've got two default pipelines. We've got a policy pipeline and a lead pipeline. This policy pipeline here lets you track the process in which you get someone signed up for a specific policy. And the lead pipeline to the right of that tracks the process of converting a prospect into a new client of yours. Both of these pipelines already have a fair bit of customization, but you want to amp it up a little further to make it match your workflow. To do this, again, just go to Settings on the top right corner, hit on Customize Your Pipelines, this fourth link down, and just for the sake of simplicity and efficiency here, I'm just going to customize one pipeline. Let's just click on Edit underneath our policy pipeline to flesh it out. This takes me to the underlying structure of this policy pipeline here, and you can see I've got a list of statuses in the center of this page. Statuses in these pipelines, they reflect the steps of your conversion process. So you want to make sure that these line up with the steps that you and your colleagues go through with each client. You can be as vague or as specific as you want. For example, some people like having just one status called following up. Other people prefer to be more specific. They have 3 separate statuses called first follow-up, second follow-up, third follow-up. The important part here is that these are the accurate steps that you go through, and that all of this is written in a language that you and your team understand best. For example, perhaps at the end of the day, when I'm done with the policy, I want to create a new status here called Policy Issued. What I'll do is I'll just hit Create a New Status here, call this Policy Issued, hit Save, and I can go ahead and put that in as an active or a closed status, depending on whether or not this is an endpoint in my process. A new status here to indicate this new stage that a certain contact or company can be in. On the left-hand side here, you also have your custom pipeline fields. Custom pipeline fields here allow you to track any additional piece of information about a contact as they're moving through this pipeline. So anything that you want to keep track of with a specific policy, you will create that as a custom pipeline field. We've got all of these custom fields put in already. The biggest things that you want to make sure you customize here are your carriers. So on the left side here, if I click on the pencil icon, I can put in all the carriers I work with. So let's say we've got United, we've got Anthem, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and let's say I also work with Cigna. So I can throw all of those options in and just hit Save Changes so that I have an accurate list of carriers that I interact with in the system and can indicate that with each policy that I work with. The other thing that you also want to make sure you customize here is the type of insurance that you offer. So the very first custom field here, if you click on the pencil icon, you see a very general list of different types of insurances that you can offer, types of insurance you can offer. You want to make sure you delete those that you aren't using. So if you don't offer auto insurance, just clear that out. And maybe in addition to all of this, you also offer annuities. You can go ahead and add another options here, throw it in annuities, so you have another section, and I'll drag this to the top just for alphabetical order, and just hit Save Changes. So all of these little tweaks you can make. So we have all of this customization put in already, but you want to make sure you do even more than that. You want to make sure it fits your specific insurance agency as closely as possible. The very last thing you can do here is just purely aesthetic. Just add a little bit of pizzazz to the CRM. You can add your insurance agency's name on the top left corner. Instead of Less Annoying CRM, just put in the name of your company. Again, Settings, View All Settings Options. This time you want to hit Company Name and Colors. And so instead of calling it Less Annoying CRM, I'm just going to call it ABC Insurance. This way, whenever my team members or when I log into the CRM, I see something a little bit more familiar. It kind of feels a bit more like my system here. So, all right, now that we've done this customization, let me just quickly hop back to our main webinar here. So when you've customized this template for yourself, the most important thing, the next big tip here, is to obviously get your whole team familiarized with it. There are a number of ways you can do this, whether or not you want to schedule your own webinar, whether or not you want to do your own training. But the two most effective ways we found with getting your team on board is to split it up based on how big your team is. So if you have a bigger team of more than 5 agents, what normally works best is for us to work with the manager or someone who's most experienced with what your agency's workflow is like. This gives us solid one-on-one time with this person to figure out how to get the whole account customized. And once that's done, once this main customization is done, we can then schedule a webinar for the whole team with a CRM coach to walk everyone through how to use this specific customization here. This is normally the most time efficient way to do things, so you don't have to get your whole team waiting around as the account gets customized. But if you do have a smaller team, fewer than 5 agents, that's when it's a good idea for everybody to be on the same webinar at the same time. So this way everyone learns at the same pace, everyone has input on how they want the system to be customized for them. You can, of course, schedule a demo or a webinar just by going over to your CRM page and just hitting on help on the top right corner of the screen here. Send us a quick note. Let us know how you want us to schedule this webinar, how you want this to be organized. And of course, what works for your agency will depend on how your agency is organized, how it's set up. For small, tightly collaborative teams, you probably want to get everyone on at the same time. For bigger teams, we can do one-on-one calls instead. So take some time to consider what works best for your team dynamic when you set up these calls and webinars with us. We want to make sure your whole team gets the most out of a demo. So make sure to let us know what the most efficient way to do is. So Julia, now that we've gone through this first main section about getting your account set up, do we have any common questions that are cropping up?
Hi, Eunice. No questions yet. I'm just sending some valuable links for what Eunice is showing you right now in the chat. If you guys have questions, please feel free to post them.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Julia. So let's keep moving ahead then. Again, if at any point you guys have any questions, just go ahead and send a chat in. It doesn't have to be relevant to whatever I'm talking about right now. If something pops into your head and you just want to know about it, go ahead and send that chat in. But okay, so now that you've got your account set up, how do you maintain a good, accurate database? A CRM is only really as useful as the information you put into it. So it's vital here that you have all the right data in all the right places as you get working on the account. So the next tip here is to use both types of records in Less Annoying CRM, your contacts and your companies. This is especially key if you work with businesses as well as individuals. And this is because most of the time the entire company is your client, but each individual at that company has a different policy. As we discussed earlier, there are two pipelines in our insurance template, lead and policy. The lead pipeline tracks the conversion of a prospect to a client, and a policy pipeline tracks the process in which you get someone signed up for a specific policy. So let's look at when you want to store information on a company and when you want to put it on the contact. So jumping back to our CRM here, let's pull up a company. So I'm going to go to my Find a Contact page, and let's say I want to work with B&B Enterprises. Let's say someone at B&B Enterprises, an HR manager, they're the boss of B&B, reached out to us saying that they're interested in working with us on getting a health insurance policy set up for their entire team. In this case, the company as a whole is my client. They are who I'm working with. So what I'll do is I'll be attaching the lead pipeline to this company record. And this is just so that I don't end up cluttering my lead pipeline with names of contacts when in reality, the company as a whole is my client. So I'm going to attach the lead pipeline to B&B just by clicking on lead on the top left corner here. And I'm going to indicate what status B&B currently is in. So maybe I've spoken with someone at B&B. They're not just a prospect, they're a qualified lead. I'm going to indicate that in the status, select a priority level for them. Let's say they're a high priority lead. They came in through a referral. I'm going to select that. And they're only interested in health insurance policies. So I'm going to check that off. Now I'll go ahead and click Save Lead, and this lets me know that B&B Enterprises is the lead that I'm working with, that they are who I need to focus on. But on the other hand, you have the individual policies that need to get attached to individual people, and that is going to be different depending on who that person is. So now we want to attach the policies themselves to the individual contact records. So let's go to an employee at B&B Enterprises. I've got Stephen on the bottom left corner here. I'm going to click on his name to go to his page. And let's say I've spoken with Stephen. We've kind of talked through what kind of policy works best for him. So let me attach a policy to him. I'm going to click on policy on the top left corner. That's going to pull up a very similar looking pop-up box just for me to store a different type of information. And let's say with Stephen, we've got an application pending already. I'll put that in there. This is a medium priority policy. I'll stick that in there. And this is just for health insurance. I can put in a policy number. I can put in a carrier. Let's say this is an Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. Put that in there. Let's say I don't know anything else at this time, so let me leave those fields blank. And now I can just go ahead and attach this policy to Stephen. And this immediately lets me know that I've got a pending application with Stephen on getting his health insurance policy set up, and that's specific to Stephen. This is his policy. So at the end of the day, you have information on the company level. So if I go back to B&B Enterprises, I've got information on the company level that lets me know how I converted B&B into a client, how I'm working with them as a lead. And at the same time, in the activity feed of the company record, I can see the individual policies that I'm working with on the specific employees there. So right now, what I did with Stephen and his health insurance policy is showing up in the activity feed. So when you have multiple policies that you're working with multiple contacts in the CRM, the company record ends up being a very nice umbrella record for you to cross-reference everything. You want to see all the different policies you have with your contacts, scroll into the company's activity feed, and you can see what you're doing with them as well. Of course, if you work with individuals and not companies, then both the lead and the policy pipelines will be attached to the individual contact records. So at this point, think about who your leads are and how you're interacting with them. Does someone have multiple policies with you? If so, they should have multiple policy pipelines attached to them. Is there one specific person at the company that's the point person that you always interact with? Does that mean that they should be the lead in your lead pipeline since you're only working with that one person? Pipelines are incredibly customizable, and these two types of records in the CRM are just intended to allow you to be flexible with them as well. So you want to make sure that the CRM fits your business and not the other way around. So now that we've got things a little bit more organized here in the CRM, how do you make sure you're always pulling up the right records? So let me go back to the next page here. So targeted follow-ups with the right person at the right time are the best way to build strong relationships with your clients. The very last thing you want is to reach out to someone randomly, sending them information they're not interested in. And this is a key component in the insurance industry too, as it makes sure that your current clients stay your current clients here. So, for example, one important thing that you will need to do is reach out to your clients with policies that are about to expire. Because our policy pipeline has a policy expiration date field, this is pretty easy to do. So if I were to go back into my policy report in the CRM, we'll just tap back into the account here. I can view a list of all of the policies I'm working on right now just by going to pipelines on my blue headed bar and clicking on policies the first link down. And this shows me everyone that I'm currently working with to get a policy set up, regardless of what kind of insurance that is. So it's August right now. Let's say I want to see everyone with a policy that's expiring in November. I want to shoot them a quick reminder that we need to set up a meeting soon. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the CRM, show me absolutely everybody in this policy report, regardless of where they are in this pipeline. So the first thing I'm going to put in is this filter by status option on the left side of this gray header bar. And right now it's set to all active statuses. I'm going to click on that and instead select all statuses. Go ahead and hit apply filter. That shows me everybody that I'm working with within this pipeline. Now, the next thing I want to do is tell me of this list of policies, of people that I'm working with their policies, who has a policy that's expiring in November. So now I'm going to click on filter by specific field on this gray header bar, and I'll choose from this drop-down menu option, policy expiration date. And I want the CRM to only show me everyone with a policy that's expiring sometime between November 1st and November 30th. So plug that in there, click apply filter, and this lets me know I've got 3 folks that I need to work with, Matthew, Chad, and Marcia. They've got some policy that's expiring. I need to give them a call, send them an email to let them know that they have an expiring policy. This is you giving them the information they want whenever they need it. So you're not wasting time sending out emails to all your contacts who don't need to know this piece of information. Because once you have this list, you can print it out as a PDF document if you need to take it with you, or export it out as a spreadsheet if you need to do anything else with their contact details. So another important thing that you're going to need to know about your clients as well is their age and their birthdays. So this is especially important if you offer Medicare or Medicare supplements, as this only applies to folks once they hit 65 years old. By storing birthdays in the CRM, the system can calculate ages for you. and allow you to pull up a list of all of your contacts who'll be turning 65, let's say the next month. And even if you don't offer Medicare or Medicare supplements, this is useful for sending out regular birthday cards to help you build stronger relationships with your clients. So let's take a look at how we can stack another set of filters to pull up everybody with a certain birthday that's coming up, turning 65. So hopping back to the CRM here, this time instead of being in this pipeline report, I'm going to go into my contact list. So I'm going to go to Find a Contact on my blue header bar and click on View All Contacts and Companies. So now this shows me everyone I'm working with. I want to see everybody who is turning 65 in September. Send them a birthday card, let them know they now qualify for some additional insurance plans, that kind of stuff. So this means I need to see two things. One, I need to see people who have birthdays in the month of September. And two, of those lists of September birthdays, I need to see who's turning 65. So the first filter I'm going to turn on here is to show me everyone who has a September birthday. I'm going to go back to this gray header bar on this contact list, and I'm going to select Filter by Specific Field again. This time, I'm going to choose from the drop-down menu Birthdays, and that's right at the bottom of this option here, Birthday, and I'm just going to say everyone who has a birthday between September 1st and September 30th. Click Apply Filter. This shows me everybody who has a September birthday. Now, of this list, I only want to see who is turning 65. So in other words, who is currently 64. So I can do this by adding another filter on top of this. Again, on that same gray header bar, you're not clearing anything. You just want to add another filter by clicking on one of those links. This will now, I'm going to select in this drop-down menu, set filter here for number of years old. And I want the CRM to only show me everybody who currently is 64. Click Apply Filter, and now I've got Amy and Chris. These are two folks that I know I should follow up with now to let them know exactly what they qualify for now that they're 65. And since it's just the two of them, maybe I'll send them a personal birthday card, not just an email, not just a phone call, just add an additional touch here, send a physical birthday card to them to let them know, hey, thanks for being a great client. I'm keeping track of your birthday. Let's talk. So, all right. Before we dive off to the very last section that we're going to cover here, Julia, do we have any questions that have come up? We can grab some specific ones right now and save some for later.
Yeah, Eunice, we did have a question from Brett. He was wondering how he can make his CRM more company focused. And I was talking to him a little bit about how we can do that with pipelines, but he also mentioned wanting to see that from the Find a Contact page.
Yep. Okay, that's a good question. So if you work predominantly with companies and contact details, those change. It doesn't really matter who you're talking to there. You want to keep your CRM company focus, as Brett, as you mentioned here. So in the pipeline, you can attach the lead pipeline just to the company, but you can also attach policies to companies if that makes a little bit more intuitive sense to you. On this main Find a Contact page, by default, it's going to show you both contacts and companies. So this gray header bar here, you can see that I have this option called Filter by Record Type, and it says Contacts and Companies. If it doesn't matter to me, if I don't want to see contacts at all, I can just select this filter here, and this time just select Companies Only, and I'm going to make this the default by checking off this option in this pop-up box. And once I apply this filter, what this means is that every time I go into my CRM, I pull up a list. If I click on Find a Contact, it's only going to pull up a list of all of my companies. But this doesn't mean that the contacts have been deleted. The contacts are still in the CRM. If you search for a contact in the system, they will still come up. If I pull up, let's say we're looking for Jolene, she still comes up even though she's a contact, and I've set my CRM to only show me companies. So if you find that your team is getting confused by having contacts and companies in the CRM, you want them to only see contacts or only see companies, you want to make sure you make use of these default filters right at the top here. And this way, whenever your team or yourself, when you log into the CRM, you don't get confused by the different kinds of records in your database. Does that help?
Yeah, Eunice, I think that answers the question. Yeah, and Brett says sweet, so we're good.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. So again, any point you guys have questions, just shoot them over. This is all about learning. If there's something else that I'm not covering here and you really want to know about this template, just shoot that over. That's what we're here for. But okay, let's dive into that very last section then. I'm going to hop back into our presentation here. So now you've got a customized system that runs well for your team, and you have a strong database that contains accurate data. The next step here is to take your CRM with you as you continue to scale up and your agency gets bigger. So a key feature here that I want to talk about is groups. Groups in the CRM, they function like tags or labels, and they let you segment your database based on any kind of characteristic a list of contacts share with one another. So you can have a group for all of your past clients, all of the HR managers that you work with, the different types of policies that you offer, and so on. Use groups to create lists that you can easily pull up if you want to reach out to them separately. You don't want to just reach out to everybody at once. You want to hit a targeted group, go ahead and create a list for them in the CRM. So, for example, if you have a list for all of your HR managers and a new policy just came in place, the government has kind of rolled out a new policy, has kicked in about how HR managers should be interacting with you, you want to send them a targeted email by having a group for them in the CRM. This allows you to reach out to just your HR managers in one go without having to dig through your database, think about, hey, is John the HR guy? No, I think it was Sally. You have that list ready for you. You can just pull that right up. As you get bigger as well, your client and your prospect list will grow. They'll keep growing. So you want to make sure your CRM is prepped to scale up with you. So by having these groups already in place, every time you add a new contact, add a new company, you can sort them out into these groups as well, so that when you get too big, not too big, sorry, when you get much larger, which is a great thing, of course, when you get bigger, you already have your database organized and set up for you. You're not scrambling at the end. You've got, list of 500 contacts that you now need to sort out and need to work with. It's already been organized for you. And if you're not sure whether or not something, a certain feature or characteristic, should be a group in the CRM, just send a chat over to Julia and we can discuss that later. Because sometimes it does get confusing whether or not, should this be a group? Should this be a field? Should this be a field I store information into? Should this be an entire pipeline? That could get confusing. So if you're not sure about that, just let us know what you want to, how you want to segment your database, and we'll let you know the best way to do that in your system. So another important thing here, of course, as you continue to scale your agency, is to have a good way to generate and nurture new leads. One effective way to do this is with an email or a snail mail marketing campaign. Staying in touch with your clients and prospects is a good way to stay front of mind with them. And Less Annoying CRM integrates with a great email marketing program here called MailChimp. MailChimp lets you send out targeted emails to groups of contacts in Less Annoying CRM. So if you're using groups to segment your database, as we talked about just before, you can imagine that you can now send out an email to all of your active clients at once, all of your past clients if you need to reach out to them again, all of your clients with a health insurance policy, all of the HR managers that you work with, and so on. Any kind of segmentation that you've used before, you can now send out an email to them through MailChimp as long as you have a group for them. We recently ran a webinar a few weeks back about how to get your first email marketing campaign off the ground. And in it, we cover a lot of details about how to make the most use of our integration with MailChimp as well. We'll send the link out to you of the recording of the webinar, as well as a couple of tips about how to make good use of your email marketing campaign. So if you're interested in learning more about email marketing specifically, just stay tuned for that email. We'll include some top tips on how to generate that effective email marketing campaign for your needs. Because once you've got a strong email campaign going, it becomes so much easier to nurture your leads and convert them into clients, all of which help you continue to boost your business. The last thing you want is to have your CRM fall behind as your company grows. So it's absolutely key that you have your CRM prepped for growth instead of having to scramble about later on. But okay, so that kind of covers the main things that we wanted to talk about here today. Now that we've gone through some tips about how you can use the CRM itself with your insurance agency, let's get to your questions. Julie received all of your questions throughout this webinar, and so we want to carve out some time to go through some of the popular or common ones. So what do we have here, Julia?
Yeah, Eunice. So viewer 15 is asking about drip campaigns, which I could actually speak a little bit on because I do our email marketing and I did our email marketing webinar here at Less Annoying CRM. You can do that by creating a group in the CRM and syncing that through MailChimp, MailChimp being our email marketing integration. And the way that would work is you have a group in the CRM, like Eunice described. You might have HR managers. You sync that over to MailChimp to a list, and then you can say, I want to add all of these people to a drip campaign, or I want to send all of them an email blast, something like that. And Eunice, the other question we had here is from Darren. Actually, we've got a few more, but another one from Darren here about how do we track policies and prospective clients with families. So he's got maybe the mom is a client right now, but he wants to turn the husband into a client as well, so the husband's a prospect. So that's kind of the first part of the question, and then I can tell you the second part after we go over this point.
Absolutely. So, Darren, that's a good question. Tracking family policies is also important here. So, let's go back to our demo account here to take a look at that. The most important thing is that every individual person that you work with in the CRM should have their own record in the system. So, let me first turn us back on to contacts and companies. Let's say we've got a contact here, Jolene Smith. She's someone that you're working with, and her husband is also interested in signing up for a policy with us. So let's say I've got a whole bunch of notes on Jolene right now. She's got a policy pipeline attached to her lead pipeline, all that good stuff. But now her husband is also being added to the system. What I can do is I just want to make sure I add her husband as a new contact. So let's say we've got Carl Smith, put in whatever information, blah, 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 all of that, and create that contact in the CRM. Now you can link contacts up in the database through this relationship with another contact feature. So on the left side of the screen here, I've got this relationship tool that allows me to create two-way links between individuals in the CRM. I want to make sure that I remember that Carl and Jolene are married, that they're a couple here. So I can just hit relationship with another contact, search for Jolene in the CRM, click on Jolene's name and say Carl and Jolene are married, and click Save this relationship. So what this frees up is some bandwidth for me to attach a different policy to Carl if they have a separate policy. If it's the same one, I can attach I would need to attach a new policy to Carl. I would just put in the same information in there. But the basic thing is that you want to make sure that each contact has their own record. If someone has a policy, if someone is a lead, they need to have their own contact record in the CRM. And if you rather not keep it identical, if you don't want them to all have the same, it is possible for a couple to share the same contact record. If it's the exact same policy and you want them to share a record, you can also create another record called Carl and Jolene Smith, but it's normally a little bit tidier for your policy pipeline to have something for Carl himself and one for Jolene herself too.
Okay, awesome. Another question we have here, part of Darren's question here is, what if we want to send a Christmas card to all of our clients or clients and prospects, but we want to make sure that we only send it to one person in the household, right? Or to Mr. and Mrs. versus sending it to multiple people in the family.
I see. Okay, so in that case, then, if you want to make sure that you're only hitting one person at a time, this is where it might be more useful for you to have a single record for a family. So if this one couple, they share the exact same policy, they have the same address, all of that stuff, you could just have them share one record. So instead of Jolene Smith, I can rename this to Jolene and Carl Smith and save changes. Right here, this is still a single contact record, but I'm using this one contact record to represent two people here. This way, when I export a list, Carl and Jolene will come out as one. They only have one address here. So this is one way if you want to do it pretty quickly, but if you did the previous method that I described, in which you have one record for Jolene, one for Carl, if you put in the same email address for them, it's just a matter of deduplicating the spreadsheet that you export later on. Because when you want to send out Christmas cards or something like that, you would need to export out your database into a spreadsheet file. This can be done through your pipeline report or your main contact list. Just click on Export on the right-hand side of your gray header bar. This will pull out all of your contacts in a spreadsheet, and you can then just deduplicate them before you run the mail merge.
Okay, awesome. We've got another question from Paul here, and then we just have one more. Paul's question is, from the company view, how do you see all the contacts at that particular company?
Okay, yeah, good question. So when you have a list of all of your companies in your Find a Contact page, first off, you'll see the name of the contacts just underneath the company name. So that will already be visible. You can click on them to go to their page. But in the company record itself, when I go to B&B Enterprises, I will see a list of all of the contacts working at that company just on the left side of the screen here under Contacts at this company. Right now, I only have Stephen and Tony, but I can add more if I like. Just hit on Enter Another Contact. Basically, all of the contacts, as long as they share this exact same company name on the right-hand side, they will be linked to the exact same company record and will show up on the company's page. And again, as I mentioned before during the webinar too, everything that you do with those individual contacts will also show up in the activity feed of the company record. And this is just a way for you to keep track of what you're doing with all of the folks at that company on one page.
Okay, awesome. We've got a few more questions rolling in. So I'll keep giving them to you, Eunice. We've got a question here. Can we attach all the documents to the client or the individual? So like policy documents and whatnot.
Good question again. So with this, with attaching policies and documents and files, whether or not you attach it to the company or the individual contact will depend on on how relevant that file is to the company or the contact. If it's a contract that you signed with the company as a whole, saying that, okay, we're going to engage in your services, here's a contract we signed, you would just attach that to the company itself just by clicking on File on the top left corner under Attach an Item to this contact to save that document in the CRM on that company's page. If it's a specific policy that you're working with a contact or they sign something, an individual person has signed something, you just hop on over to that contact's page and you will see that you also have the same option to attach the file to the contact as well. So it's all about whether or not this document is related to the company level stuff. Is this like some HR documentation that's going to apply to all of the contacts at this company? In that case, attach it to the company. If it's specific to this person, if it's only related to Steven here, it doesn't matter that Tony, the other employee at the company, also has a similar thing. His is going to look different. You want to attach that to Steven's individual contact record. So it's about whether or not it involves the entire company as a whole or just the individual person.
All right. And then Brett Adams here is asking again. He wants to filter the mobile site for just companies rather than companies and contacts.
Mm-hmm. So that's a little different here just because our mobile site is optimized a little differently than our main CRM. However, I do believe that if you turn on the default, well, Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe that if you set your default for companies only on your main CRM on the desktop, that should apply to your mobile site as well.
So on the mobile site, actually, the way that you find a contact page filters by default is going to show you the most recent contacts that you've touched. So it's not actually going to really be filtered at all. A workaround here, though, is that you can add all the companies in the CRM to a company group and then search for that via mobile. Another option here is we can ask our developers if there's any like short keys you can use in the search bar on mobile. I'm not currently aware of one other than that group filter that we could potentially do there, but that's something that we can ask our developers about.
Yeah, we can definitely check in on that for you.
Okay, and there is one last question here from Stephen. Is there a way to set up recurring follow-up tasks for leads until they are closed?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this question comes up quite a bit, and one thing about that is that right now the CRM doesn't have a built-in functionality for recurring tasks. That doesn't mean we're not going to include that. We are working on rebuilding our task feature sometime in the future, and recurring tasks will be something we include. In fact, right now we're working on a calendar upgrade and will allow the option to create recurring events. So until we get those done, we'll have recurring events first, then recurring tasks. But in the meantime, right now, because there isn't a way to do that, what most of our users do when they want to set up tasks for what the next step is with somebody is they just go ahead and update the pipeline in the CRM. So every time someone moves from one step to the next, let's go to Stephen here. Maybe with his policy, there are a couple of things I need to do with him. I need to update him in the system. I can just click on the pipeline badge in his contact record to pull up the same pop-up box we saw before. With every update I make, I have this option to set a follow-up task. So instead of setting a series of follow-up tasks immediately, setting up like 20 follow-up tasks and then later catching up with them, this kind of gives it a more personal touch. This makes sure that, okay, so now that you've got the application done, I'm going to move him to this application completed stage. I know the next thing I need to do with him is start underwriting. So I'm going to start a next step. As I'm updating him to the completed application status, I'm going to tell myself, okay, next Tuesday, start underwriting. Underwriting process. and click update this policy. So what this means is that every time I move a contact from one step to the next, I am setting the next follow-up task for myself. This way it kind of reminds me of what the next step should be. It's not so much automated. If Steven kind of gets to me super early, I don't have to edit all of the future tasks to adapt to that new timeline. I'm working with what I have right now and taking my contacts through each step as I complete each stage with them.
Okay, Eunice. We don't have any more questions, but I think you answered that one. Thanks.
But okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. The conversation, of course, is not over here. If this kind of jogged anything in your head, it sparked an idea, you're kind of considering a couple of things, but you're not sure. That's what we're here for. You're welcome to bounce ideas off of us. Just give Julia a call, give me a call, send us an email, whatever makes the most sense for you. We want to make sure you're getting the most of your insurance template for your insurance agency as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll send a follow-up email to you, of course, including links to this webinar as well as Julia's previous email marketing webinar, a couple of tips about that. If you have any questions at all, any feedback, anything you want us to know, again, ideas, just let us know. So again, thanks so much for chatting with us, and we hope to see you guys again soon. Bye.